Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad that you're here with us. This is English Parent Forum number 38, which sounds like a big number because it is. We've been doing this for about 3 years now with Dr. Eran Magen, and we're delighted to have you all with us today. It's a really great topic, strengthening trust and goodwill with your child or teen. We have addressed this topic before, but it seems always more pertinent every time that we do it. So again, thank you for joining us. Please join me and everybody in a really warm welcome for our presenter, Dr. Eran Magen. Eran, I'm going to make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
I feel the power flowing.
There we go.
All right, power has arrived. Thank you. Thank you, Charlene, and thank you, Bev, and hello, everybody. Happy Friday, 2025. For those of you that are comfortable, it would be so nice to see your faces as I talk. I believe only I am being recorded. Hopefully, I'm the only person talking in the next 20 or so minutes. Hopefully, I say this on a technical level, though maybe not on a, how much fun this will be for everybody. But I think, I think it'll be good. I hope it'll be beneficial. But it's nice to see faces. It's nice to get a sense of whether or not people are falling asleep and I should kind of speed it up, or people are lost and I should slow down. It's just helpful. Let me get started. Like Charlene was saying, for the next little while, I'll talk with you about foundations of goodwill. This is such a fundamental topic in parenting, and for me, my absolute favorite. So I'm happy to be doing this. Hopefully you'll be happy that we were doing this together once I'm through. I want to just start off by saying, good work, parents. You're doing great. Parenting is hard. Parenting is tricky. Parenting can be confusing and needs to happen while we're living the rest of our life. And nobody's perfect at this. And in all likelihood, they're going to be fine, right? The question is just, how do we make it better for us, for them, and how do we make sure that our relationship is strong as they're coming out of childhood and all of this? And so, again, just even for making the time out of your doubtless busy schedules and coming here to just sit for an hour and think about parenting and maybe adding a tool to your tool belt, good work. Your kids are lucky. You're doing great. Okay, having said this, I'll start with the bottom line for those of you that have a limited attention span today. The next 30 seconds, I just want your total attention, and then you can, Facebook. So it's all about getting in alignment with our kids, right? If we are aligned, if what we ask of them is aligned with what they want, if what we propose is aligned with their understanding of what works, everything becomes so easy. Okay, and it's these two things in particular that I'll be focusing on today. So making sure that we are aligned with our child, making sure that the goals that they have and that we have are aligned, and that the path to get there is aligned. In general, big picture principle. When our kid can say something like, my mom understands me perfectly, or somebody says, does your dad care about you? And the kid goes, yeah, obviously, more than anything. Or says, do you think your parents respect you? And your kid goes, yeah, they think I'm awesome and my opinions matter. And do your parents want to help you with your goals? Yes, they care very much about what I want for, like, all of these things. When your kid can say yes to these things, or even walks around just kind of assuming those things without thinking about it too hard, everything is so much easier. Right? And the short version is, if your kid can say, yep, my parent is on my team. We're not fighting each other. We're not working at cross purposes. They're on my team, team kid. This is what's happening here. And the parents are both, cheerleaders, coaches, support personnel, logistics experts, possibly team managers, but they're on my team. This is where I aspire to be in my relationship with my kid. The conceptual framework that I use to think about all this is the relational bank account. So I think about relationships between any two people, and including between parents and kids, as consisting primarily of goodwill. That's the main currency of the relationship that I'm thinking about. And the more goodwill we have in the relationship, the more lots of good things happen. The more trust we have between us, the more honest we can be with each other and vulnerable we can be with one another, the more effort we'll put into supporting each other or helping with things that we've been asked to help with, the more likely it is that we'll forgive the other person when there's a lot of goodwill, right? When somebody made a fumble. And the more likely we are to spontaneously cooperate, which is the main focus for today. And so if more goodwill is better, the obvious next question, at least in my mind, is how do we make sure there's more goodwill in the relationship? And if we think about this like a bank account, that means we want to do more depositing and less withdrawing. We deposit goodwill by showing care and respect to our kid. It all sort of comes down to that. There are lots of different ways to do it, but if we do something that communicates very clearly to our child in a way that our child understands that we're doing this because we care about our child or because we respect our child, that's a deposit. Amount of goodwill in the relationship goes up. We withdraw goodwill either by asking our child to inconvenience him or herself on our behalf, which is totally a normal part of every relationship, right? From pass the salt to pick up laundry, to get groceries, to cook, to take the dog for a walk, to clean your room. Like these things happen. We inconvenience ourselves for people we care about. Sometimes also for people we don't care about. Then we get resentful, right? Because the relationship is kind of in an overdraft. But in general, we inconvenience ourselves for people we care about. It's kind of nice. We just want to be careful not to constantly withdraw through these requests to inconvenience to the point of running out of goodwill. So we want to be depositing before and after. Another way to withdraw from a relational account that is a lot less necessary, but happens a lot too, is when we communicate lack of care or lack of respect to our kid through our behaviors. And these are things that are good to avoid. I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute. You can do a little dipstick test to see how much goodwill is in the relationship between you and your child by asking yourself something like, which of these describe the way things are between me and my kid, right? So I would say the amount of goodwill, the strength of the relationship that you have with your kid is kind of impossibly high when your kid spontaneously goes out of his or her way to delight you, right? Breakfast in bed, works extra hours at a business that she came up with in order to buy you a vacation ticket to some exotic destination. You come back home to a sparkling house. All the pets are in a row singing hallelujah that you arrived. Like, this is like impossible kind of ideal, but that's the idea, right? Like, that's maximum imaginable is when your kid spontaneously tries to make your life better, right? It's thinking, but it wants to do it. I mean, I don't know anyone that has this situation, but that's kind of a theoretical limit. Just right back to the like, everybody here is awesome. Like, you're doing fine. This is a theoretical limit. Like, don't stress over the image I painted here. A good place to be is when your kid kind of cheerfully cooperates. You say, hey, could you go blah, blah, blah? And your kid's like, sure. And scampers off, skipping merrily, making whatever sounds your kid usually makes, and then does the thing. That's a good place to be. It means that there's so much goodwill that your credit is immediately approved, right? When you make a request. Maybe it goes down by a bit, but it's like no big deal. There's such reserves in there. Everything is fine. It's a little low, or maybe a lot low, if you make a request, any kind of request, and your kid either ignores you or says yes and then doesn't do it. That's a really sophisticated way to ignore your request. Or says no and won't, or you need to negotiate and start, strategizing around requests. That means that the balance in the relationship is low, right? Maybe your request is approved, maybe it's denied. It's possible also to go into the nightmare territory of going into overdraft in the relational account. And that's when you use your power as a parent to force your child to cooperate, even though there's not enough goodwill to support the withdrawal request that you made, right? Because we have a lot of power as parents, obviously. especially the younger the child, which also means that the older they are, the more power we need to use, and it becomes a bigger and bigger withdrawal. And that's kind of the mirror image of the impossible ideal version, right? They'll go out of their way, they'll sit there scheming and plotting for figuring out ways to make your life miserable in big ways or in little ways, but that's not a great sign when they're kind of trying to make you upset, right? It means that the relationship is off in some fundamental way, and it's time to start making more deposits and less withdrawals. Here are examples of behaviors that can happen in the course of daily life that constitute deposits because they show care or respect or both toward your child. And in general, my recommendation is to incorporate these and turn them into relational habits that you have. So they start happening automatically, and you're not having to think about it and plan for a time when you can check in or say thank you or what. Just turning them into a part of your life. And what you end up with is this constant flow of small deposits into the relationship, which keeps the relationship very healthy, right? And that's much more sustainable than occasionally having some enormous deposit, which is, it's hard to pull off. It often doesn't work as well as we would like. And it's kind of exhausting for us to do as well. But if you can incorporate this into your habits, into your way of living life around your kids, you end up with very healthy relationships. I'm gonna go over these. My guess is, I mean, you've obviously heard and probably know a fair bit about all of these. I'll tell you what I mean when I say these particular words, but just a couple of words for each one. And if you want me to elaborate more, then I'm happy to. Can put it in the chat, and we can talk about this more later. Thanking your kid when your kid does something that you appreciate. And by thanking, I mean making actual contact, setting aside your phone, right? Not talking to your phone while your kid is around saying, that was great, thank you. But like setting it aside, making eye contact, saying, I really appreciate it. That was really nice. Thank you. Right? Praising. So pointing out something that your kid did that you think your kid did well. And leaving aside any buts, it's not coming in with any hooks or barbs. Compared to last week, this is other, but just saying that was amazing. That was really impressive. The way that you kicked the ball, cleaned the dishes, got a B on the test that you were terrified about. Like, that's amazing. Good for you. Great work. Right. And again, just taking time to be specific and clear, and actually be impressed with your child. Respectful redirects. We often give directions to our kids. That's part of being a parent. Sometimes we turn them into a bigger withdrawal than necessary by doing it in a way that's not respectful, and sometimes in a way that's not caring. Right? But it's possible to take almost any instruction that you give to your child, whether you're asking them to do something totally new, or if you're asking them to change how their behavior, if you're trying to redirect them to do something else, it's possible to do it in a way that is respectful and warm, basically. And if you can't make it warm, make it respectful. And by make it respectful, I don't mean that you need to, invite foreign dignitaries and have a treaty signature. I just mean remove anything disrespectful, right? Mind your tone, mind your language. It's easier to think about these things if you imagine your kids are people who do have power. Like if you think about them as colleagues, or maybe even as a boss who's asked you to remind something or something like that. Like, I don't mean to totally upend the power structure, but I mean, it helps so much to make little changes in the language, right? If you're sitting in the living room and your kid is playing something loud in his room, and you shout from the living room, turn it off, I can't hear anything, I told you a million times. Like, that's one way of doing it. And another is to press pause in your extremely important YouTube movie about how to do a high jump, in case you ever decide to start doing high jumps, and then walk to the room and say, Jeff, could you turn it down, please? It's really loud, right? Like, totally different impact on the relationship. It takes a couple more seconds, takes a little more effort, but you've now turned this into maybe with a withdrawal of 1 or 2 points instead of like 20. It's little things. Reflecting is when we say back to our kid what our kid said to us. It's really simple stuff. It allows us to relax quite a bit. Actually, we don't need to be coaching or teaching or critiquing or analyzing or anything like that. But when our kids tell us things, they want to know that we understood and that we care and that we're paying attention. And this is such a nice way to do it. I was just listening to a stand-up show a couple of days ago, and I forgot the lady's name. I'm sorry. I really want to credit her every time I say this, because I'm going to say this every time now. But she talks about a time when she says, I was talking about my favorite subject in the world, me, and then you came in and started talking about you. What is, and that's exactly it, right? If they're talking about them, just keep it about them. Just say back what they said. They'll be delighted. They'll tell you more stuff because now you're listening well. It's such a key and simple skill in relationships. Checking in, exactly what it sounds like. Just seeing how they're doing. I'm sure you do this all the time. Checking in includes this little sub skill, which is following up. This is a big deal. Right? If they told you something is happening on Wednesday, and then on Wednesday asking them, how did that go? Or if they're saying that their friend Linda was about to do a thing, and then a couple of days later you say, so how's Linda doing with the thing that she was, that's amazing. That's amazing, right? That somebody remembers and wants to know. This is a great way to make a deposit, to strengthen the relationship. Expressing belief in them, exactly what it sounds like. Just literally saying, I believe in you. You can do this. There are so many of these skills are about making explicit what you're already thinking and feeling, but just sometimes forget to say, right? Of course we love them. Of course we care about them. Of course we want the best for them. Of course we believe in them. We don't always say it. And I think the expectation of telepathy is a silent relationship killer. It's the blood pressure of relationships, right? So it's better to say it. And expressing belief is one of those things. Focusing on your kid's success. I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth in a bit, but basically actually keeping in mind, what are your kids' goals? What are the things that your kid cares about? And then connecting requests that you make when possible to those goals that your kid has. It's not always possible, but when it is, framing things in terms of how this is helpful for your child when it's genuine. Taking a personal interest, it's a lot like checking in. I won't split the hair here. Positively moved is a really fun one. I really like it, which is telling our kids when something they did influenced our mood positively, right? Made me so happy when you gave the cookies to your sister. That was really lovely. It's a little different than praise, right? Because this is how they affect it. Everything can be combined, right? It can be one bigger deposit. Can say, that was really great. Thank you for getting the cookies for your sister. I'm really impressed that you did that. That was lovely. And it really, like, it warmed my heart to see you do it. It made me so happy. Great, triple, why not? Or to say, after I dropped you off at school, I was thinking about what we talked about. And I thought, it's really inspiring the way that you've been blah, 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 blah. Amazing to think somebody else is thinking positive thoughts about you when you're not there. How nice, right? So this is being positively moved. The nonverbals, it's really a reminder, about all these things, right? Look at them just like you want them to look at you. Mind your face. Ideally, talk with them when you're close by. Standing far away just requires shouting. It just doesn't feel good. Part of us is like, why is this person shouting? Even though we know everything's fine, right? So when possible, just be closer so you can speak more softly. Okay, so specifically though, I want to talk about how do we achieve alignment once we've started minding the fundamentals, right? None of this works if the relationship is in a bad place, right? And everything I talked about so far is really the fundamentals of making deposits into the relationship. And once a relationship is in a good place and you're thinking, okay, I want to help my kid with something, or make sure that my kid does something, right? Clean the room, study for the thing, practice the instrument, practice the sport, speak differently with their friend, whatever it is. How do we achieve alignment? The short version, and I'll show you the long version in a second, but the short version is you align with your kid on the goal, what it is we're trying to achieve here, which is something many of us skip over. We just kind of tell them the goal. And if there's no alignment, it's going to be a lot of this. So we spend a little bit of time aligning on the goal. Then we spend a little bit of time aligning on the solution, how to get from here to destination. Then we're done. Magic. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great Friday. So I'll go into a little more detail about how do we do each of these steps. There's not a lot more though. The main thing is that each part of the conversation, make sure that you get buy-in about each of the steps. So a little bit of personal disclosure. You should know this about me. If something doesn't make sense to me, like I don't understand why I'm doing it, and if doing it feels bad, I'm very unlikely to do it. Right? If you say, go outside and, sprinkle sand into your eyes, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm very likely to do something if I understand what's the point, and especially if it feels good to do it, then I'm very likely to do it. This is about as like basic human as it gets, right? And it turns out our kids operate in the same way. They come with the same manual. So our goal is to make sure that they understand the point and that they agree with the system and feel good about the system, the method for getting there. So a little bit more specifically, how do we build alignment around goal and around method? I would suggest starting with an observation, a clean, neutral observation. You want them to clean their room. Think about this for a minute before we talk about it with them. And then we go and we say, hey, Jeff, I noticed that often getting ready for soccer practice in the afternoon is really stressful for you because it's hard for you to find the stuff that you need, the shin guards and the, I don't know what they bring, a whistle, water bottle. It's hard for you to find your stuff. That's it. And I just say this. And I stop and I see what he says. Maybe he says, yeah, it's about like, it's just hard to find. I don't know. Maybe I need to start getting ready earlier or whatever. But you're starting out to get into like an agreement, at least that there's a problem, something that's worth solving. Or he might say, hey, Nikki, I remember that, Nikki, I was thinking about how you told me that you want to get into band, right? With the flute. But you seem really nervous about it. Right? I hear you talking about the audition that's coming up and you seem really nervous about it. And then Nikki goes, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do because I just don't feel I can be ready on time. It's like, it's in less than a month and I can barely sight read. And I don't, you share an observation, your kid is now kind of in the mind space with you. And ideally, you figure out if you even agree that there's a problem, which may be the step that I should add, aligning on the problem. Okay. Then you check about a goal and check if there's alignment. Jeff, would you want to be able to find stuff more easily, and just be less stressed when you're leaving? Nikki, how important is it for you to get into band? Now, they may or may not sniff that there's trouble coming at this point, but it's still a fair question to ask about the goal because we haven't yet dictated any method. Like we're just checking if we're in the same world here. And there's a good chance they'll say, yeah, I do want to get into band, or yeah, I mean, obviously I don't want to be stressed and late for soccer practice. And then if there are kind of subtleties there, this is something that's worth a little bit looping on. So if you don't actually agree on the goal, if Nikki says, I don't know, it's not that important for me to get into band, maybe there's nothing to discuss here, right? Maybe you don't need to intervene at all. Or maybe you think it's super important that Nikki get into band for some reason, because you know that actually she wants to very, very much, but right now she's downplaying it. So maybe you discuss some more. Maybe you say, are you sure? Like let's say it's 2 months from now and you're not in band. Do you feel okay about this? I'm not trying to get you to say one thing or another, but I want to check because before it sounded to me like you were very interested in being in band. So I'm back to sharing an observation, right? Or Jeff says, I don't care if I'm a few minutes late to soccer practice. So maybe I say, it doesn't matter at all if you're late. And Jeff is like, nope, nobody cares. I'm like, okay, right? Or maybe you work on it a little bit together. Maybe maybe you do share an observation, right? Like you come back and you say, oh, you missed an important part of the drill, or like we get into like a tizzy looking for your stuff and I get kind of stressed when we're looking for the things. But there may be some iteration there that needs to happen on the goal. And again, the goal can be anything. You might be saying, I noticed that after dinner, you kind of get up and leave, right? And leave the dishes to me to clear off the table. And your kid's like, yep. You might say, well, I'd love more help because this would free up some of my time and my energy, and I'm working pretty hard here. And also, I know that, you want to leave like 10 minutes after dinner, and I'm not always ready, and it's not working for me to come back home after I drive you to the thing to a table that's full of dirty dishes because I have other things I need to do at that point. So I'd love some help with clearing the table so we can get out on time. Blah, blah, blah. Can we agree on this? Right. So there's a discussion around this. You're trying to come to alignment on the goal. If you have an alignment on the goal, then it's time to have the same conversation about, well, what's the path to reaching that goal? And you may have some ideas and they may have some ideas. So you might say, Jeff, I know this may be hard to hear, but I think if the room was a little more organized, it'd be easier for you to find your stuff. And Jeff's like, whoa, 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 what do you mean more organized? And you say, well, I think if instead of coming into the room and throwing stuff, rock star style, perhaps if you could put it on the thing, maybe that'll be easier. Or maybe we could organize the room once a week, or whatever your solution is, right? Likewise, for Nikki to practice her flute and saying, I think you'll make a huge amount of progress if you practice for 10 minutes a day. Is that something you want to do between now and the audition? Or whatever it is, right? So you suggest a solution. Your kid may say, nope, that's not at all acceptable. And then there's a conversation around it. If this is not a hugely time-sensitive issue that's coming up, like if there's not a burning fire, this is such an important conversation to have, right? If Nikki's audition is in a month and you're talking today about what to do in the next few weeks to get her there, because you agreed that she wants to get into pass the audition and get into band. This is such an important moment because having this conversation in and of itself is a huge relational deposit, right? Your kid is now a partner. You're not just throwing down laws and prescriptions. You're helping your kid figure out a path. You're clearly respectful of your kid's opinion and preferences, and you clearly do it because you care about your kid's goal. The whole conversation is a huge relational deposit, right? This is not a fight. You're on the same team and you're helping them get where they want because you agreed on a goal before. So as you discuss the solutions, if it's not super time sensitive, it may be the case that you can come to an agreement on a solution. Maybe you suggest 20 minutes of practice, and Nikki's like, that's insane. How about 5 minutes? And you say 5 minutes, in my experience, just not a lot of time. Like by the time you get warmed up, but maybe 10 minutes. Nikki's like, fine, 10 minutes, I'll try. Good. You arrived at a solution. Or you may have no agreement on the solution. Maybe there's no obvious compromise. Like, Jeff says, how about we clean the room, once a month? No, maybe not once a month. Maybe you say, I'm trying to think of an example where there's no compromise. So maybe Jeff says, I can just push the piles, to different places at the end of the night before I go to bed. And then I'm sure that I'll remember what is inside each pile. And you might say, I really don't think there should be piles. Like you can't find stuff in your piles. And you just disagree. In that case, especially this is a chronic situation, like, and nobody's going to die anytime soon because of it. That's where you can agree on an experiment. That's my favorite thing to do with kids. So you might say, you know what? Let's try your way. See what happens. Right. And let's kind of reconvene in a week or two or whenever we agree and just see what happened. And that's amazing for the kid because they got to self-determine, right? In a conversation with you, you agreed with them and they get to see what happens. Now, best case scenario here, honestly, is they're right. You meet a week later and you say, Jeff, I have to say, like, that looks amazing. The room looks a mess, but you seem to find everything that you need. Great. And Jeff's like, yep, it works. Wonderful. You still get a lot of points as a parent doing this, being willing to go and try your kid's way. and your kid will be much more open to these kinds of discussions next time. Or you meet the following week and you say, so Jeff, how's it going with, finding your stuff? And Jack's like, ugh. And you say, yeah, it seems like it's not better. And Jeff might say, yeah, I guess so. And then the conversation continues, right? You might say, okay, so we tried your way. Would you be open to trying what I suggested? Just like it's a lot of work. And you say, okay, how can we make it less work? And you find some, and maybe then there's room for compromise, right? And you figure it out. But this idea that the conversation can be done extended in time through check-ins and debriefs later on, after experimenting with different solutions, makes this whole thing much more possible. And again, such a nice opportunity to connect, as long as you can keep the conversation nice, as long as there's not like an I told you so in there, and there's not kind of playing one-upmanship with your kid. But eventually doing this, it's very likely that you'll agree on a solution, at which point they're going. Like the initial solution may be trying their way and then trying your way, or finding a compromise, whatever it is, right? But this is how you build alignment, through conversation, basically. Open, clear, kind conversation. A couple of bonus tips as we near the finishing line. One, timing matters a lot, right? When Jeff is running around the house, screaming, cursing, stressed, sweating, that's not a good time to have a conversation about new protocols for arranging the room. You want to pick a time when everybody's basically calm and basically in a good mood and available and willing to have it. And you might start the conversation spontaneously, or you might say something like, do you have time to talk for a few minutes after dinner? There's nothing wrong, nothing bad going on, but I have some ideas I want to run by you. Right? And then you make sure that people are prepared for it. But the timing really matters for people to be in the right mind space to be available for it. Two, throughout the process, I really encourage you to be explicit about how you want good things for your kid. To say repeatedly throughout the conversation, I realize, you seem like upset about this idea of practicing sight reading and scales on your flute every day. And I'm only suggesting it because I want to see you achieve your dream of getting into band. That's the only reason I'm doing it. That's the only reason I'm suggesting it. I'm not going to force you to do anything or anything like that. It's so wonderful for me to see you happy, and I know you really want this. That's why I'm thinking about it with you. Okay, but I'm here to help you get where you want. It's so powerful to say those things. It reminds everybody again that we're on the same team. Just keeping it explicit is so helpful. I know this is kind of step one of what I said before, and I generally really try not to repeat myself out of great respect for your time, but this one cannot be overstated. Make sure you're aligned on the goal. If you are trying to get your kid to do something and it's not connected to anything your kid cares about, it's going to be very hard. Unless you literally say, do this for me, right? And that's fair. That happens in relationships. But if you're trying to do it kind of for them, but they don't understand how this connects to a goal that they care about, it's going to be very, very hard, or it'll constitute a big withdrawal. So be clear, is it for you or is it for them? And if it's for them, make sure they know it's for them. Make sure you actually agree on this, not just that you inform them, but that they agree and understand that this connects to a goal that they have. Experimentation, I talked about this before, so I won't belabor the point. But when you're open to experimentation, they're open to experimentation. And you can be magnanimous. Let them try their way first, with the agreement that you'll check in afterwards together, figure out what happened, and if that doesn't work, try something else, possibly your way. When that debrief happens, it's very important to keep that debrief a positive experience for your kid. You don't want your kid dreading the next time that you do something like this and there's a debrief and you immediately drop on their head and start assigning scores and kind of lord it over them that they failed. It was an experiment. There's no failed experiment. We tried something, we learned. We can try another thing and maybe we'll learn something else, right? But the goal is not to teach them that the person who was right gets to be mean to the person who was not right. Nor is the goal to teach them that agreeing to an experiment is signing up for a potential berating session. We're experimenting because we want to learn, because we're both trying to solve this together, because we're a team. So just make the debrief nice. Keep it neutral, you did this, I saw this, what was your experience in it? Okay, looks like it doesn't work, looks like it does work. How about we try this thing? It can be a conversation. It doesn't need to be heated. I think this brings us to the end. So my shameless plug at the end. There are two websites that I made and run. One is called parentingforhumans.com. Who's the company that has the .com? It's some Expedia? It's some travel company. They used to have an ad. I don't remember. Sorry. So parentingforhumans.com has a lot of material like the stuff that I've been talking about here today. It has some links to recordings from the Parent Venture workshops that I made. There's a mailing list, and if you join it, then you get blog posts. This one does not have a podcast yet. Future workshops that I'll be on, then parenting groups that we're setting up for parents who just want to meet. Typically, it's every other week, and just spend time with a couple of other parents, breakout rooms, and just think about how things are going with kids, and what do we want to do differently, and what's working well, and just set a time to strategize a little bit. And then divorcingdads.org is a project I started a little over a year ago now, I think, that's aiming to support divorcing dads. And just make sure that they have the skills and remember the reasons to stay in their kids' lives. So often dads kind of fade out of the kids' lives, and I think that's to everybody's detriment. And so the goal there is to support fathers, help them stay connected to the kids, help them do good co-parenting, and kind of reduce intensity and conflict that exists. So if that's not you, but you know somebody for whom it might be relevant, tell them. This one does have a podcast where I interview dads going through the process and kind of going through challenges and successes. So that is all through divorcingdads.org. That concludes my presentation.